who to leave our little daughter with, because it is too risky to take her with us on a mission. They couldn't find a nanny, so they'll probably have to turn to Grandpa again. He promised that he would be able to look after her in his free time. It wasn't difficult for him, especially considering that she was a very calm child. After that, he looked at Kira and said that he wanted to talk to her in person. When they went into another room, the grandfather said that he was not going to force her to marry his son. He wants to understand if she likes Lee, and at that moment the girl began to remember everything that had happened recently. She remembered all those moments when he cared not only about her, but also about their daughter, and her soul felt warm. She said that her attitude towards him was changing, and now he was revealing himself as a completely different person. Grandpa was delighted with the words he heard and said that they must organize a wedding soon. He was probably in too much of a hurry. Jae Hwan understands perfectly well what this lady has gone through. Even though she has already become a mother, she is still too young. When Sora was just born, no one supported Kira. Her parents died many years ago, and Lee was not there during difficult moments in her life. Sometimes Kira blamed herself for all this. It seemed to her that because of her difficult character, the people around her were abandoning her. They had a bad relationship with Lee, and besides, it was she who initiated the latest conflict. The young mother was confident that she could cope with motherhood, and at the same time be a successful businesswoman. She wanted to raise her daughter and also work full-time, but if she had a little experience, she understood that this was impossible. During difficult moments in her life, she thought about Lee a million times, but tried to forget about him and continue her journey alone. There were more and more difficult moments in her life. One day Sora became seriously ill, and Kira thought about writing to Lee again. However, she didn't do it because she hoped that her energy would be enough for the child. Problems became more serious after Sora developed extraordinary abilities, although the little girl had not yet learned to control them. There were many people who wanted to take the young talent to their guild. It was at that moment that Kira realized that she would have to constantly protect this child from bad people. They agreed that Sora would not show his powers to anyone except his mother. Those were difficult times, and we had to go through a lot of difficulties, but now all that is behind us. Now she has support, she is no longer alone, and Lee, as well as his father, are always ready to help her. She can trust them to shift some of the responsibilities onto their shoulders, because they are also willing to help. Lee fully shares his father's position. He is no longer a little child, because by returning to the past, he wants to correct all his mistakes. Now they have a chance to build a strong and happy family, but for this they will have to work hard and constantly go out of their way to meet each other. The decision was made. They both had to do everything to get a hunting license, and Grandpa was ready to help her in this matter. When they returned home, they immediately went to bed. Lee had a strange dream, although he wasn't sure that all this wasn't really happening. The city was in ruins, and it was hard to see even a single living creature, which is not surprising because it was incredibly cold outside. After walking a few meters forward, he saw a girl who looked very much like the adult Sora. He approached her and tried to understand why she did this, why she gave him a chance to start everything over from the beginning. He was having trouble getting the words out. It was unlikely to be anything physical. More likely he was just too worried. He could only stand and stare at her face as Sora screamed because she thought her father was disrespecting her. She said she despised him and wasn't going to forgive him for everything he had done. It seemed that at that moment she would kill her own father, but she opened her eyes and realized that she was in her bed. He sweated from fear, but now it's all behind him because he's in the past, and he can correct all his mistakes. The little daughter came to wake him up and have fun. Soon Kira entered the room. She said that today was a rest day, so they wouldn't be training. After breakfast, the guy decided to check his balance. The money was getting less and less, so something had to be done. When they can get a hunting license, they will start to make a small profit, but it won't be right away. There's still a lot of time before the certification, so we need to figure out how to make a living. Lee said that he and his daughter are practicing Sora therapy, a new teaching of Eastern doctors that is very beneficial for health. To perform this technique, you need to lie down on a soft bed and dream about something pleasant. Everything was perfect, but my mother doesn't like Oriental practices. At that moment, something incredible happened. Lee's balance was replenished, and Darren transferred him a large sum of money. It turned out that Kira also received the same cash bonus. They couldn't believe that this really happened to them. It was decided to immediately call the girl and find out what happened. Maybe it was just a mistake. She explained that she had earned a lot of money for the Monster Corps, so she decided to share it with her teammates. After they get a license, they will be able to earn much more, and all this is just a nice bonus. She also said that the hunter exam will begin soon. It exists to assess the abilities of people who want to become hunters. Warriors who pass all the tests receive a license. They also receive the right to use all the benefits of the profession. Each of them will feel recognized, because professional hunters are very respected figures in the community. Darren promised to come to the exam and support them. Lee thinks it's strange. Maybe this girl has ulterior motives. Maybe she wants to invite one of them to her guild, which is actually a pretty good idea, since her guild is one of the best in the country. In any case, this is a big event for their family, because now they cannot worry about money. Looking at each other, they immediately understood where to direct these easy bonuses for clearing the dungeon. Every father and mother wants their child to wear the best clothes, so the decision was made almost immediately. Soon Sora was dressed in the latest fashion and wished her parents good luck on the exam. If they get a license, their lives will change for the better, but for this, they need to show all their talents. Darren agreed to stay with little Sora during this time. She would replace her grandfather, who also deserved a rest. Lee practiced so often that he had no time left to prepare for the written assignment. He is not particularly worried about this, and is confident that his experience will be enough to pass this exam. Before returning to the past, he failed this exam a huge number of times, but he always received the maximum number of points for the written part. His problem was the second stage, because due to a lack of strength, he constantly failed strength tasks. When he finally got his license, it was something incredible for him, because he truly earned the title of hunter. Kira, on the other hand, is incredibly worried. It will be bad if she takes the exam in this condition. I decided to offer a small agreement. Whoever scores the lowest number of points in the written assignment will fulfill the winner's wish. Kira quickly agreed to these conditions, and now her excitement has turned into motivation. The operation to prevent Sora from becoming a thief has officially begun. So that their daughter does not have to go through 5 misfortunes in the future, it is necessary to lay the foundation for a happy childhood and youth. In Korea, there is a large house of swords. Today, there are events that are quite important for our history. The headmaster was informed that the certification of future hunters would begin today. This means that the master must pack up and hit the road. Today, he decided not to go by car, but to walk. Particularly attentive viewers will recognize this man as Master Sun, who later played an important role in the battle against Sora. Let's go back to taking the exam to become a professional hunter. Our main characters were able to successfully pass the written test. It turned out to be quite easy. Now they will have to face an artificial monster. They must defeat it in a limited time and not get seriously injured. Future warriors will be observed by representatives of various guilds. This is a great opportunity to show yourself at your best. A large metal monster was quickly formed from a small ball, and it will not be easy to deal with it. A large number of participants were unable to pass this physical test. After the written test, they thought they were almost hunters, but now they were faced with a harsh reality. Some even began to surrender before the battle began, which made the guild representatives upset. Soon, a holy swordmaster from Korea came to the exam. This is the first time he can be seen here. He usually avoids crowded events. This legendary warrior's name is Kam Sun, and on the day the catastrophe began, he saved humanity from absolute destruction. After that, the hero founded a sword guild, and now the grove became famous throughout the world. His skills are second to none. As soon as people start talking about hunters, they immediately mention him, so his presence is important. Rumor has it that he came here for his granddaughter. It's hard to believe, but Darren is really his biggest weakness. Soon he saw another little girl next to his granddaughter, and was quite scared. He thought his granddaughter had given birth to a baby, but it turned out that it was just his friend's second daughter who needed to be looked after. Little Sora called her grandfather Santa Claus. To be honest, he looks quite like him. After that, the conversation about the exam began. The Holy Sword was dissatisfied with this year's representatives. He said that they were too weak. That was until the 28th member of Team D passed the test in 1 minute. Thanks to her hard training, Kira was able to easily cope with this physical task, and Lee immediately congratulated her on her success. After that, it was his turn to face the Iron Monster. Now we will see what he is capable of in real combat. The guy looked determined and wanted to finish the test as quickly as possible, but a shadow of uncertainty crept under his skin. In his past life, he often failed physical tests, so now it is very important to forget about the past and move forward. This is a chance to start over with a clean slate, but for some reason, Lee can't even move. The people around him thought he was scared, and only the Holy Sword understood that this guy was trying to analyze his opponent and the situation around him. At the last moment, when it seemed that the monster would tear his head off, Lee easily dodged and avoided meeting death. Having passed this test countless times in the past, he had learned the monster's weaknesses. There is a huge hole in his armor. All that remains is to use this knowledge and destroy his opponent. Everyone knows that the weak points of training monsters are their joints, but our main character knows something more than everyone else. He acted completely atypically and surprised the esteemed audience with his battle strategy. The guild representatives had almost fallen asleep watching the weak warriors, but now they were all awake and very attentive. No one could take their eyes off what was happening in the training arena because Lee was able to get the monster's core. He officially passed the physical test and destroyed this Terminator with ease. He did it in just 14 seconds, so we can talk about a new competition record. He immediately ran to Cyrus to celebrate their joint success with her. It was probably for the sake of these two hunters that Darren called her grandfather to this exam. Of course, everyone can see the opponent's weak point, but thinking through a strategy from start to finish and getting the core is a completely different level. After they received their hunting licenses, it was time to celebrate the victory. The exam drained all her strength, so Darren invited her friends over for a delicious dinner to restore her energy balance together. She promised to pay for everything because she had recently cleared another dungeon and made a lot of money. The girl is not worried about finances at all. She is sure that in the future, when they start earning, they will be able to thank her. From the very beginning, Lee thought that she would want to invite them to her guild. He must have been too suspicious of her. A good attitude towards him, along with a feeling of gratitude, causes anxiety, the impression that there is some hidden meaning in this. Not only because of how Darren was remembered, but also because the legendary Kamson was her grandfather. After that, the daughter of the legendary warrior decided to ask where her friends bought their new weapons. If he introduces her to his weapons master, then in the future, the blacksmith will definitely be introduced to the holy sword. The meeting of the best hunter and the best blacksmith can really have a big impact on the world. The problem is that all this has to happen much later, in the future, so this could again lead to the butterfly effect. A little later, they returned home and began preparing for their careers as hunters. Lee told Kira that he introduced their weapons master to Darren. The girl wants to change her weapons, so she needs a professional blacksmith. Lately, Lee has been thinking too much about the butterfly effect, and his anxiety has increased significantly because of it. When he heard the request to meet the blacksmith, he began to get incredibly worried. Then he felt a little better, because he realized that Darren was actually a good person. She only did good things and brought goodness into the world. This is no longer the same Darren who was drowning in a sea of problems. Now this girl can be trusted. It should also be noted that Kira and Lee have not yet officially become hunters. They are preparing to start their careers, but for this, they need to pass another exam. They hope that everything will go well and they will finally be able to make a living with their talents. Kira felt it was the perfect moment to thank her daughter's father for his help. He put in a huge amount of effort to ensure that she passed her first hunter exam. It was the first time Lee saw her drunk. She must have been celebrating her victory too much. In any case, he's pleased to hear these words. They will still have time for such conversations after receiving their license. He could not even imagine that this conversation could lead to events that did not happen in his past life. But now we are transported to Kunak Mountain. The final stage of becoming a hunter is clearing an entry-level dungeon in a room with random people. The final score stems from the hunter's ability to work as a team, so it is this aspect that will decide whether they receive a license or not. There will be two more guys on his team, the young Mansu and the more experienced Dejo. They set out to clear the dungeon. They have 3 hours to do it, and they can only use one type of weapon. Before everything started, the guys were given half an hour to plan their strategy. Mansu is a sorcerer, a rare gift that is highly valued in guilds, but Lee does not remember him at all from his past life. He had heard a little more about the warrior Dejo. This hunter loves to fight with his fiery fists and is not a fanatic about weapons. That is, now he has met a hunter who will be called the king of boxing in the future, but now he is only at the beginning of his journey. Now their talents are not very important. They need to learn to work in a team, because only thanks to this can they pass the test. It is necessary not only to discuss battle tactics, but also to decide who will operate in which positions. If Lee wants to succeed, he needs to run this kindergarten because his partners are still too young. Soon they entered the dungeon, and the entry-level quest began. Everyone has chosen a comfortable position for themselves. Mansu will operate from behind thanks to his large attack radius, and Dejo will be ahead of the entire team. As everyone has already guessed, Lee will be inside and giving orders. He already knows that people panic when they first enter a dungeon, so he wasn't surprised when Mansu asked to clear the place without him. Soon he was persuaded to go on a sweep, but it was already clear that he could become the weak link in the team. This young wizard decided to start a conflict with the captain, but the captain doesn't like it when someone on the ship commits a mutiny. He immediately made it clear to this model-looking guy who was in charge, so that similar problems would not arise in the future. He ordered the sorcerer to remove all the jewelry from his body, otherwise it would all end very badly. The referee was next to them. He noted the captain's confidence and immediately wrote down his characteristics in a notebook. Everyone around knows that Lee scored maximum points during the physical test last week, so it's better not to joke with him. They continued exploring the dungeon, but so far they haven't encountered a single ant. Examiners may intentionally create atypical situations to assess the intelligence of participants. Soon they saw something strange, a huge hole leading deep underground. Lee had not encountered anything like this when clearing the initial dungeons, so he immediately focused and tried to calm down. It would have been better if Mansu had done exactly that, but this fool could not resist and began his journey into the abyss. The guys tried to save him and ordered him not to move. Now they will try to pull him up the mountain. This would be much easier to do if a huge ant monster hadn't appeared behind the sorcerer, in which case only the Ant-Man can help. The guys realized that now it would be too difficult to help their friend because the monster was taking him with it into the abyss. I had to jump into this hole and end up outside the exam just to save my friend. They are the first to enter the mysterious dungeon, so a special quest has been started, and now they are required to clear out the antlion's lair. As soon as they realized they were in a mysterious dungeon, they immediately began to look in different directions and explore the area. Rumor has it that unusual situations can occur during exams, but considering the reaction of their judge, everything that happened was not planned. There was no lair in this dungeon before Lee's regression, so the butterfly effect that Lee talks about so much must have worked again. Most likely the sorcerer will be alive for some time, because such monsters do not immediately kill their victims. The entrance to the mysterious dungeon was closed as soon as they got here, which could lead to even bigger problems. It's immediately noticeable that Daejo is shocked. He's never been in a real dungeon, and their team is inferior, and they're too weak. If you clear this dungeon, you can get an elixir, a reward for clearing the mysterious dungeon. Every hunter knows that clearing a dungeon can yield various rewards. Elixir can be considered one of the best reward options. It enhances the hunter's physical abilities, which is why it is so desirable for Lee. Now he's like jumping into a burning house, but it's not all that bad because their team includes the king of boxing and a man from the future. The decision was made almost immediately. Lee said that they had to save the wizard, no matter what it cost them. At that moment, he looked like a real hero from an anime. It's always nice to follow such a leader even to the depths of the abyss. Soon they moved forward to meet the adventure with confidence in their eyes. Their task is very simple. They need to clear the dungeon and save Mansa. Soon they encountered the first ants. Their boss ate these monsters and turned them into his own zombie army. They don't look incredibly dangerous, but you can't lose concentration when fighting them. Thanks to the captain's experience and intelligence, their team easily avoids all dangerous attacks. He acts as a true leader and is a pleasure to watch. They soon began to feel each other out and fought as a true team, although it would be more accurate to call them a duo. After some time, they approached the lair of this huge monster. Most likely Mansu is there. Although this guy looks like a fool, it is important to save him in order to successfully complete this task. They thought too much about saving their friend and completely forgot about their own safety. Lee began to attack the dungeon boss, but his armor is so powerful that it cannot be penetrated with ordinary weapons. He had fought monsters thousands of times and spent a huge amount of time studying their strengths and weaknesses, so now he had to remember everything. He doesn't have time. He needs to quickly understand his opponent's weak point and save Daejo. The future boxing king was very lucky to have such an experienced hunter by his side. By using the correct angle of attack, he was able to free his new comrade from the teeth of death. Now we can't think about resting until the monster has escaped underground. We need to finish it off. They were able to damage its eyes and antenna, but it wasn't enough to completely destroy the threat. To win, you need to support each other. If Lee acts alone, he won't succeed. Previously, everyone laughed at Daejo. It was believed that only a fool could give up weapons and fight with his fists. He was rejected by various guilds and didn't want to take their teams. You could even say that this guy was a loser. Today I found a person who believes in him and thinks his fighting style is incredible. This person is Lee. He said that Daejo was the strongest hunter of all the insects he had seen, and this made Daejo work at his full potential. Now this huge antlion must feel the force of a double attack from the young hunters. Daejo's incredible physical strength was needed more than ever today. He had been waiting for his prime time for a long time, and finally felt a taste of future success. This guy has turned into a real fighter against monsters. Sometimes it seems like he doesn't even have support. Using his physical strength, he did everything possible to leave the lower part of the monster unprotected. He created ideal conditions for his teammate to attack. Everything else is just a matter of technique. Lee understands that he is facing the future king of boxing. He cannot hit his face in the dirt, so he must also demonstrate his talents. A few seconds later, he executed a technically perfect blow and cut the monster into 2 pieces. The system informed the boys that they were the first to defeat the antlion in the mysterious dungeon. The special quest has been completed. Now a reward and glory among young hunters await them. Soon, Lee and Kira came to the ministry and received their long-awaited hunting licenses. Even though the job was done, Lee didn't look very happy because he understood that these were just the first steps on a long journey. He saw his bracelet start to glow again, meaning a source of mana appeared somewhere nearby, but the siren didn't work again. He began to panic. Just like Kira, strange things were happening around them, so trouble awaited them again. Before that, Sora looked upset. It turned out that her mother didn't let her eat the lollipop and thus upset her daughter. It's hard to believe, but now this surge of energy is connected to Sora. It seems she has finally decided to get what she wants. Like the story of a ruined house and the Cretan bull that destroyed it, this girl's magic is getting out of control. Soon they returned home and put their daughter to bed. It was time to talk about what had happened. From the very beginning, they couldn't even imagine that their daughter wasn't that capable. But now they have to decide what to do with Sora's talents. Lee decided to dig deeper and find out what happened when their house was destroyed, which led to this situation. Kira said that she and her daughter had an unpleasant conversation that day because Sora wanted to find her father. Hearing that she would never see him again, she began to cry, and then the house was destroyed. Now that it's clear why Kira decided to find Lee, this puzzle becomes even clearer. Today her antics didn't lead to disaster, but it was immediately clear that the little girl had enough strength, as if she were an experienced sorceress. Lee already knows that in the future Sora will become a very serious threat to humanity, but he is confident that he can change the future. His daughter has no control over her power at all, but this energy is activated by strong emotions. Of course, this is all just speculation, but due to strong emotions, Sora's mana becomes uncontrollable. We need to decide immediately what to do. If we don't intervene in the process, someone will definitely get hurt soon. In his past life, Sora's strength grew just as quickly, and his father also didn't know what to do. He was left without a wife and was busy with work, so sometimes he didn't even notice his daughter's growing energy. Honestly, he didn't even suspect that this could go too far, but now he understood something. One of the reasons Sora's magic is strengthened is because it is located where there is too little mana. If you take her to a place where there is enough mana, the situation may improve. There are only two such places in the world, a dungeon and a battlefield. It's obvious that Mom is against such excursions. It's incredibly dangerous, and something terrible could happen at any moment. Her father is also afraid to take her to such dangerous places, even knowing what a thief she will be in the future. We must not forget that now this is a small child who wants love and support. It's a strange situation. In order to save her from a terrible future, she must be confronted with danger. There is no guarantee that doing this will change the future, but it is at least an attempt to improve the situation. Kira is ready to believe in Lee's strategy. They can go there with their daughter and protect her from the monsters. The main thing is that she be present in a city that is saturated with mana, and her parents will be responsible for her protection. Children are usually not allowed in such places, so you will have to call friends and ask for help. The next morning, the young family set off for the legendary sword house in Korea. They were immediately met by Darren. This girl always comes to the rescue in difficult situations. The daughter of the Holy Sword is always very happy to see Sora, so she will not refuse to help this young lady. Lee explained that they had come to ask for help, but first they had to go into the house. It turned out that the house is located on a high mountain, and in order to reach the entrance, you need to overcome a long distance. Kira and Lee are in good physical condition, but they barely slept last night, so they are not very prepared for the challenges. As soon as they reached their destination, they put their daughter to bed and fell asleep next to her. The sacred sword area is built in the traditional Korean style, which was invented during the Joseon dynasty. Soon it was time to talk a little, and Darren asked what exactly they wanted to ask her. While little Sora slept peacefully, the adults talked about her problem and tried to find the right solution. Darren couldn't miss the opportunity to take a picture of the sleeping princess and completely forgot about the serious conversation. Let's talk about faults. They come in three types, and the first that comes to mind are cracks that release monsters and then disappear. There are also erosions. They charge large buildings and create dungeons. And of course, you can't ignore the constant rifts. They don't disappear and release monsters after a certain amount of time. The battlefield arises in places where a large number of such faults are concentrated. A young family wants to take advantage of such a place. Darren immediately agreed. They introduced her to the best blacksmith in the world, so now she feels obligated to thank her friends. The young family expected it to be a long and difficult negotiation, but it all ended almost immediately. Soon Darren went out to talk to her grandfather. She was away from her friends for a while. At that moment, a young girl entered the room and said that Darren had a guest. Lee couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the young and famous hunter Se-hyun in front of him. They had already met during the dungeon crawl in the shopping mall and understood what kind of person this was. He came even after being humiliated by Darren, and judging by his reaction, it was his first time here. Before leaving, Se-hyun pointed his finger at Lee and said that they needed to talk. It is not known what the conversation will be about, but the mere invitation to dialogue is enough to make Lee start to worry. They went outside to talk, Lee looking upset because he couldn't kick this guy out of someone else's house. It turned out that he came here to collect a reward for clearing out the shopping mall dungeon. This guy has completely lost his mind. He believes he discovered this dungeon, and therefore is entitled to his share of the profits. He wanted to clean up the place after the entrance opened, but he was beaten to it and done so without permission. Se-hyun reminded him that he was the leader of the Knights Guild, a star with an impeccable reputation, so it was better not to conflict with him. He understands that Lee has no experience or reputation, and that he did not have a license when he cleaned out the dungeon, and this could lead to problems. Lee decided to remind this fool how much he was shaking with fear while cleaning up the shopping mall. He reminded that everyone was on equal terms, but Se-hyun decided to run away like a little girl. In his opinion, Se-hyun is not worthy of the right to be a hunter, so he is not going to share the prizes with him. Soon, Darren finished talking to her grandfather and returned to her guests. She said that her grandfather had allowed them to use the battlefield and began asking about Lee. When the girl found out that Se-hyun had come, she became incredibly angry and said that she was not happy to see such guests in her home. Kira began to worry about Lee. He had been searching for the battlefield all evening, and now he might be too aggressive in his conversation with Se-hyun. She was indeed right about this, because at that very moment, a new conflict broke out on the street. Boys are boys. If talking doesn't work, they are always ready to take out a weapon and start fighting. Se-hyun couldn't believe he was losing to this newcomer, easily parried his first attack, and began to counterattack. Even when he fought against Earth Spiders, he never encountered the same power as Lee. This made Sehyun nervous, and his opponent sensed it. He understood that Sehyun became a hunter only because of her beautiful eyes and smile. Sehun is sure that he must win. He does not know that his opponent is actually living a second life and has plenty of experience. At this moment, Lee realized that he should not demonstrate all his strength and techniques. If he easily defeats his opponent, Sehyun will immediately run to Darin to ask for a reward. He knows how to tell lies instead of the truth. This guy is a born manipulator. He will try to drag Kyr into his guild, and if he succeeds, the terrible future may repeat itself. It seemed that Sehyun was doomed, but at that moment Lee felt weakness in his legs and fell to the ground. He didn't understand what was happening and why he seemed to lose consciousness during the battle. Meanwhile, Sehun realized that he was lucky and his opponent had spent all his mana. Now he has the perfect opportunity to kill Lee, if of course he has enough strength of character to do so. This perfect opportunity should be taken advantage of, and then you can pretend it was an accident. It seemed that Lee was doomed, but the legendary master of the Holy Sword intervened in this conflict in time. Although this is a place for training, Sehun insulted this sacred ground with his sword. The dream ordered him to leave immediately and never return here again. It was at this moment that the girls went outside and saw what was happening. They thought that Grandpa had beaten Lee, but the Holy Sword explained that he had only saved this young hunter. At this moment, the Holy Sword decided to say a few words to the boy, to corner his opponent. This is a great battle strategy, but not perfect. During his constant training, Lee became too tired and used up all his vitality. We must not forget that rest is also an important part of a warrior's training. Then the Holy Sword promised to give them the opportunity to visit the battlefield, as if guessing why they needed it. Sehun was trying to escape from the Holy Land at that moment, but that doesn't mean we'll forget about this guy. His evil soul that will play a role in our story. Soon Lee went on a well-deserved rest and slept for 2 days. He fully recovered his strength. Now we need to focus on the upcoming battle. They have no time limit, so we can take our time. Kira has already managed to study all of her partner's notes, so now she is confident of a successful cleanup. They left Sora with Darin. The master's daughter will guard the girl at the entrance to the dangerous area. Then her parents can fully concentrate on the battle and the monsters. While they risk their own lives, their friend enjoys playing with the little princess. Today she saw for the first time what Sora was capable of. This girl was not going to hide her talents from the world. By evening, there were almost no monsters left in the forest, surviving and hiding from hunters. They did a great job and can now go back and enjoy playing with their daughter. As soon as they returned to Darin, this girl immediately showed her concern and said that they needed to have a serious talk. She understands that it's none of her business, but she wants to hint to her parents that their daughter is a witch. They had to tell her everything they knew. Now there was no point in hiding anything from Darin. It was impossible to hide it, and besides, it didn't make sense because this girl didn't wish them any harm. Lee immediately explained that it was a secret because the Wizards Tower would immediately try to take this young talent away from them. The Tower of Wizards is an organization created for the best wizards of the era. They have many opportunities to influence the world. Taking advantage of their position in the past, they took Sora with them, which is why it is important to stabilize her mana level. This little princess must not fall into the hands of these sorcerers under any circumstances, and now Darin understood everything. She said she would go with them because she was willing to do anything for Sora. It was decided to accept her proposal because together they would be much stronger than separately. The vision of an ordinary person does not see the mana around, but Sora feels it and says that he sees a blue glow. Soon the father saw that his bracelet began to glow, and he received confirmation of his daughter's words. From the very beginning, it was clear that this was helping Sora feel better. She started laughing and completely relaxed. It seemed that everything terrible was behind us, but at that moment, a siren started screaming in the forest, announcing an immediate evacuation. The hunters began to flee to safety. They immediately heard the sound of a crack appearing. Usually such situations are not unpredictable, but today they were unlucky. The exit from the battlefield was completely closed. Now they are in even greater danger. A few seconds later, the boss of this field appeared behind them and an unexpected quest began. Now they must destroy the mountain golem, despite the fact that it is larger than all the other monsters they have encountered. Lee asked Kira to stay away from danger. She is the fastest of them all, so she will be able to protect her daughter. The guy checked in advance that cracks would not appear, and he also knows that the boss never comes without support. There's no doubt he was intrigued by the mana Sora used. Soon, a huge monster began attacking little people. For him, it was all like a game. A mountain golem is a monster that hides its core behind a stone chest. If you don't attack actively enough, you will never win in life, so you have to act very decisively. The only way to defeat him quickly is to find and destroy the core, and that requires teamwork. This core is usually located in the monster's head or neck, which Lee learned from books. There is no point in attacking without a clear strategy. It will only lead to defeat and even greater problems. You always have to stay calm, take the right position, and attack at the same time. Instead of fighting against the people, the golem began to move in an unknown direction. Only a little later did it become clear that he wanted to take the child with him, because his mother was the one who interested him the most. Now he has two goals at once and it's too late to give Kira the signal. We need to destroy the monster much faster than it can reach Kira and Sora, and for this we need a plan. Let us remind you that in the future Darren will learn an incredible sword attack technique. Currently, this technology is not yet at the required level, but there is no other choice. We must try to change the situation for the better. The girl understands that she shouldn't rush like last time. She needs to remember her training and act focused. An accurate strike will help destroy even a stone giant, but only with the right technique. She succeeded. Darren hadn't been this happy with her achievements in martial arts for a long time. In any case, the monster is not dead yet. Although the blow was powerful, it is not enough. In the future, she will destroy such monsters in a matter of seconds, but for now she needs to continue training. Until they completely destroy the golem, it will constantly regenerate using its mana. It seems like this huge rock wants to crush them both with its bare hands, so it's better to run away immediately. Unfortunately, the young hunters did not have time to do this and were already mentally saying goodbye to life. But a miracle happened. An unknown energy completely took over the monster and transformed it into a large polar bear, just like that. Kira and Sora were safe. They managed to escape from the huge monster, and now their lives are not in danger. The mother understands that Lee and Darren are in danger and wants to help them. She explained to her daughter that the monster was very bad and had to be stopped, so she had to go back and fight him. At that moment, little Sora said that she also wanted to help and asked to take her with her. Obviously, Kira was shocked. She did not expect such a turn of fate at all. At first, she wanted to refuse, but then she saw that something strange was happening to her daughter, and she could no longer do anything. Little Sora approached the monster and activated his incredible ice energy. Kira couldn't understand what was happening, but some unknown force prevented her from intervening and stopping her daughter. A little later, the mother saw her daughter on the ground. She had fallen asleep due to the loss of a huge amount of energy. Then Kira looked up and saw what had happened to the huge golem. At this point, Lee still didn't quite understand what was happening, so he took the opportunity and descended to the ground with Darren. Obviously, only a very powerful sorcerer could do something like this, but who is he and why did he decide to help? Only a little later did the young father begin to suspect that his daughter might have done it. Now is not a good time to analyze the situation, because the monster is aggressive again, so we need to think about rescue. The great polar bear, although it looked dangerous, had become weak and incapable of battle. It seems that the golem will easily destroy it and break it into a million pieces. It seemed that way until the bear took out his magic wand and began to defend himself. It certainly doesn't compare to the battle between Godzilla and King Kong, but it's still fun to watch. As if hypnotized, Lee and Darren watched this battle and couldn't even move. Soon the bear began to win and crushed his stone friend. He was able to extract its inner core and destroy it. And at that moment the system immediately reported victory over the glass golem. The unexpected quest was completed. The battlefield was completely cleared, so the worst was behind us. Soon the young family returned home for a well-deserved rest. They have a lot to talk about today. Darren promised that no one would find out about what happened in the mountains, so her friends could sleep peacefully. They were not seriously injured, but only received a few minor scratches. Sora was incredibly tired from this busy day, and as soon as they returned home, she immediately went to bed. Incredibly, today she created a huge bear with creation magic, not summoning magic. Summoning is similar to using a familiar, which draws power from its master's mana. Today, Sora created a completely new magical creature. Summoning and creating from scratch are completely different things. It's safe to say that their little daughter is already one of the most powerful witches in the world. After talking with her friends, Darren saw that unknown people had come to her house. They don't look like friends and grandfather, but they look very serious and want to talk. When Sora woke up, her parents immediately began asking her how she had created the large polar bear. The girl explained that she wanted to punish the bad monster, but she herself doesn't understand how she managed to do it. Lee heard someone knocking on their door. Probably guests had arrived that evening. At that moment, Darren called him. The girl said that she had urgent news. She warned her friend that a representative of the magic tower had come to him, at which point Lee's heart began to beat at an incredible speed. When they fought the monster, a huge amount of energy was released. This energy was detected by the fault-finding radar. Now they are looking for people who were on the battlefield at that time and interviewing various witnesses. Darren continued to tell all the details, but it seemed that Lee was not listening to her at all. He remembered what had happened in his past life and realized that he could never allow this story to repeat itself. The system immediately reported that Lee Sora's first misfortune had just begun. A unique quest has begun. The father's first task will be to protect his daughter from William Taylor. At that moment, Kira approached him and tried to understand what was happening. He explained that the people from the Tower of Witchcraft were looking for them because of what happened on the battlefield, and now these people had come to their home. Procrastinating will only increase suspicions about their family, so it's a bad option. All that remains is to trust your intuition and ask your little daughter to do something for her parents. Soon, William Taylor was led into the house. He said that he was the wizard from the tower and had come to ask them a few questions. He apologized for his late visit and explained that the Hunters Association had tasked him with the investigation, so he was counting on their help. In a past life, William Taylor was also present. He was the head of the British branch of the Wizard's Tower. His status is currently unknown, but it will not be easy to fool this experienced sorcerer. His assistants are already looking around the house for traces of mana, but so far, they haven't noticed anything. The main thing is that this terrible man does not feel Sora's mana, and everything else is no longer important. Before sending him home, they talked to their daughter about something important. The parents explained that bad people want to find Sora's power, so the mana must be hidden deep within. If Lee is right in his guesses, then the daughter's magic is getting out of control, not because she can't control it. In fact, she simply didn't learn to do it, probably because she never tried to master this power. William already knows that the young parents have passed the Hunter exam and have also recently been to the House of the Holy Sword. He decided to ask if the two of them defeated the monster on the training ground. Lee replied that they did it with Darren's help. Soon, talk began that a huge release of mana energy had been noticed, as well as suspicious objects found on the battlefield. It became clear that these were the remains of a polar bear, but they couldn't show that they knew what it was. After the ice bear defeated the monster, it broke into small pieces and slowly melted. No one could have even thought that the small remains of this bear would be found. But what happened. Lee said he would like to help, but he doesn't recognize anything he sees in the photo. William Taylor feels that both hunters have a strong charge of mana, but as strong as the one that was on the battlefield. He thought he had taken the wrong path, said goodbye, and wished the young family good luck in the future. After he left, Darren called them. The girl almost died of excitement. She was afraid that her friends would be caught, but everything ended well and now the worst is behind her. It seemed that you could rest and think about the future tomorrow, but the system reported that the quest was not yet completed. So far, their daughter's misfortune has been activated, perhaps due to William Turner sensing Sora's mana. There's no guarantee that Lee will be able to stop him. He's not much stronger than a normal human right now. William Taylor is very strong, and it will be almost impossible to stop him. The wizards are very powerful and can take Sora by force. Now we cannot relax because of past life experiences. On the contrary, we need to work more actively and become even stronger. This young hunter has a huge responsibility on his shoulders. He must protect his own family. Lee used his knowledge of the future very carefully, but there was no more time for hesitation. To begin, you need to research all available information and find a person who is important enough for their story. He began working that same night, and within a week he had made some progress in this direction. TV stars are always shown on TV, but their lives are not much better than the lives of ordinary people. One famous blonde woman is heading to the dungeons again today. She's doing it just for publicity. Her name is Hiram. She is the heiress of a corporate boss who loves to attract attention. This does not mean that she is a weak hunter. On the contrary, this girl is well-trained and armed according to all the canons of the profession. Today she came to go down to the Quan Underground Station. When she found herself in this dark place, she saw that there were no monsters here. Someone had already cleared this dungeon. Her weapons and protective gear are in perfect order. She is also in good shape, but she still doesn't feel confident. Soon she saw a man, probably another hunter who had come here before her. She wanted to ask him about the person who cleared this dungeon, but this man began to attack. This man did not come alone. With the help of his sword, he managed to wound Hiram, and it seems that he is not going to stop there. Whoever it is, she wants to destroy it as soon as she gets out of here, but her powers are leaving her body. In this state, it will be difficult to get out of here alive, unless, of course, some superhero saves her at that moment. When superheroes come to the rescue, it's always unexpected, and today's situation is no exception to the rule. Lee began to beat the criminals despite the fact that they were armed. Very quickly, he made them regret what they had done. Hiram asked the boy who he was and why he was helping her. He replied that he was just passing by and happened to hear screams. The high-tech company currently ranks first in the production of Korea's most famous weapons. In their arsenal are all types of weapons used by experienced hunters. There you can find combat weapons, protective equipment, and potions. And today Lee saved the daughter of the boss of this corporation. Hiram tried to learn as much information as possible about her savior. He turned out to be no Prince Charming. He was almost married and had a child, but in any case, he saved her life. In that case, she is obligated to thank this guy and is ready to pay generously. Lee replied that he didn't need the money, although of course it was hard for him to refuse such an offer. He can get a huge amount of money, but if he agrees, then the relationship with Karam can be forgotten. This girl values human qualities and hates selfishness and commercialism, so she requires a special approach. She is ready to thank and give her savior information about the still uncleared dungeons. Her gift is a task, but he can decide for himself whether to participate in it. The Tiger's dungeon hasn't been cleared yet. A new monster has been found there, and a team has even been assembled for the clearing. Only pieces of dead bodies remained of this team. 5 of the best warriors were killed in this hellish dungeon. They obtained all these photos using a video recorded by one of the team members. What happened there is even difficult to describe. It can be compared to a real horror movie. Lee said that he was interested in this offer and wanted to go to this place alone. He understands that this quest was done to test his abilities. If someone wants to see his potential, he is ready to show everything he is capable of. She really wants to test him in real life. He seems like the kind of guy who backs up his words with actions. In the evening, Lee returned home and saw his happy daughter, who was more and more happy to see him every day. Previously, he could not even imagine that he would feel so comfortable at home. In such moments, any worries are forgotten. He is now surrounded by incredible women, the best daughter in the world, and his future wife. At least that's what he hopes. The young princess said that her father smelled very delicious, although he didn't notice it. Kira decided to check out this scent. It was the first time he had seen her so close to him since she had returned. No matter how you look at this girl, she is incredibly beautiful, but now she felt that Lee smelled of women's perfume. Probably all this happened after the meeting with Hiram. You will have to explain everything that happened in order not to lose good relations with Kira. He explained that this smell was not his at all and he didn't know how to lie. If he had a mistress, he would have told her right away, so there's nothing to worry about. Soon Kira smiled and said that she believed his words, although in reality she was ready to kill him just a few seconds ago. Several days have passed since these events, and we are transported to the entrance to the Tiger's dungeon. It seems only Hiram has the right to clean this dungeon, because there is no one else around. From this woman's assistant, he received all the items he would need in the dungeon. Now you can dive into the Tiger's dungeon and see the world of adventure and risk firsthand. As soon as he entered, the system notified him of the start of the quest, and the cleanup began. The biggest danger of this place is the incredible darkness. Even a powerful flashlight won't help. Of course, this shouldn't stop our hero, especially if he can use the night snowflake. This elixir, which allows you to see in the dark, he received after defeating a large ant monster. As soon as the elixir was applied, Lee immediately felt the effect and began to see well in the dark. His daughter is waiting for him at home, so he must clean up the place and return to his family. A huge number of monsters have been waiting for fresh blood for a long time, so all parties are happy. These monsters are professional hunter-killers. Their main strength is not technology at all, but numerical superiority. They haven't studied martial arts, so they're easy to defeat alone, but when there are many of them, they become a real problem. At one point, the monsters stopped attacking the boy. He didn't understand what was happening until he turned his head and saw what was behind him. Hiram didn't say at all that bodies had been found, so maybe someone was still alive. He will be very lucky if he can actually find survivors, and judging by the reaction of the monsters, there is someone behind this door. In the video, one of the hunters ran away and died of fear, probably because he saw something incredibly scary or was sensitive to vibration and sound. Soon Lee realized what had scared the hunter so much. He met this monster in person and regretted being born. He had never seen anything like it in his life. He had not even read about such monsters in his books in the past. Thanks to his quick reaction, he was able to injure this giant and not let himself be eaten. But this was only the beginning. This demon doesn't need quick reactions and flexibility. It just waits for its victim and then eats it. The monster is able to copy the voice and appearance of its victim in order to lure other people into an ambush. It is called a mimic. There was little information about this monster even in the future. Now nothing is known about these creatures at all. It turned out to be much faster than expected. Even despite its large dimensions, it remains fast. In its mouth are several hundred razor-sharp teeth. If these teeth touch you, you are dead. On the other hand, Lee only blocked his spear attack, and that was enough to injure the monster, as it has a weak shell. Now you need to find the perfect moment and land a well-aimed shot. That might be enough for victory. This monster knows how to think and choose the right voice to intimidate its enemy. He began to imitate the voice of a little girl and call Lee his father. Soon he even began to imitate Sora with his body, so this mimicry is extremely insidious. Lee understands perfectly well that this is just an ambush and is not going to believe the monster, but the emotions inside him win. When emotions come into play, the brain shuts down and a person forgets about strategic thinking. Lee was very lucky that he had experience from a past life. He came to this dungeon after careful preparation. He knew that trouble would await him, so he received protective equipment as a gift from Hiram. This suit not only increases the power of mana flow, but also has insulating protection and frost resistance. Although even this is not the main advantage of this suit, because if you pass mana through it, it will become incredibly strong and solid. So as soon as the monster tried to take a bite of its dinner, it immediately started screaming in pain. He very quickly regretted meeting Lee in the dungeon. Today is the day of reckoning. The mimic has killed a huge number of people who came to this dungeon, but he will no longer cause problems for humanity. Although he resisted until the very end, he must be finished off and his story must end. With his last strength, he tried to survive and force his enemy to change his attitude towards him. He did everything to make Lee remember all the difficult moments of his past life. The mimic pretended to be Sora and reminded her that she had gone through difficult times. This might have worked if he had been faced with an ordinary hunter, but Lee is unique in his own way. The monster was finished. You could forget about it and move on. At that moment, an unknown woman approached him and told him not to lose his heart in the future. She even called his name, and her behavior really scared our main character. She can't tell him who she is, but she explains that she came to change the reward. He should use this reward only in emergency situations and not lose himself. The woman promised that they would meet again soon and said that she knew his exact location. Lee tried to stop her, but she disappeared, and the system reported that the dungeon had been cleared. A few hours after these events, he returned to his home. He was met again by his happy daughter. She was smiling and wanted to hug her dad. It wasn't easy for him. He was remembering the events of today and didn't feel very comfortable. Any battle with monsters takes a piece of the hunter's soul. These monsters change a person from the inside, but few people know about it. My daughter had been waiting for him all this time. It seemed like they hadn't seen each other for a very long time. In her past life, she also constantly waited for her father, and it was painful to go to sleep without his embrace. It's hard to admit, but the facial expression gave Lee the opportunity to understand how much Sora was suffering. This time he wants to apologize for being late and promise that he won't leave her alone with anyone else. The next morning, he went straight to Hiram's to talk about clearing out the dungeon. Lee said that he received a ring as a reward, although the girl was not very happy with it. She believed that he would get at least some artifact because the dungeon was very dangerous. Lee said that maybe he was just unlucky, but in any case, he was happy to have the opportunity to clear this dungeon. Hiram believes that the reward should be much more valuable than the ring, so he offered him money again. Lee realized that he had to seize the opportunity and name what he wanted to get. That same day, Kira went to training to improve her shooting skills. Her mind was occupied with something else entirely. She noticed that Lee had been acting rather strangely lately. He constantly smells of women's perfume, and a ring has appeared on his hand. She probably thought for no reason that their relationship could improve, even though he proposed marriage, but he probably found another woman. On the other hand, they have a lot in common. They have come a long way together, and this has strengthened their relationship. Maybe he's doing all this just for his daughter, or maybe he really loves Kira. So far, this whole story is too mysterious. At that moment, Lee approached the mother of his child and frightened her. He came to greet her and give her something. It turned out that he was able to get another costume for Cyrus that he could wear to clear the dungeon. This suit is perfect for all occasions and is the best technology for hunters today. It seemed that Kira wasn't listening to him at all, but was thinking about something completely different. She looked at his body and couldn't understand when he became so handsome and muscular. A little later, she remembered the suit again and thanked him for the gift. In exchange for this costume, he received another request to clear a dangerous dungeon. He showed Kira the contract and said that now they had a new mission that they could go on together. The girl agreed, and soon they found themselves on the border of Seoul. 5 to 10 people are needed to complete the dungeon, so we had to assemble a team. First of all, they called their friend Darren, who is 22 years old, and a swordsman who has already established herself at the highest level. After that, it was decided to take Daecho with him. He has more experience and also very strong fists. Then Lee suggested taking Hiram to the team. She would add balance to them. Of course, they all don't have the best experience, but in the future they will become outstanding warriors. Lee hopes that doesn't stop these hunters from showing their potential, or maybe he's just being too modest. Now it was time to choose a captain, and all the team members looked at Lee at the same time. They made it clear to him that they considered him the ideal candidate for the role of captain, so this problem was also quickly resolved. Now it's time to go into a dangerous dungeon and face a large number of monsters. This time their team is much larger than usual, and this may lead to unexpected plot twists. Soon a new quest was started. They must clear the dungeons of an ancient tomb of forgotten warriors. Daeho immediately demonstrated his fist-fighting talent and knocked out the first monster. It really looked impressive, but now he would have to repeat this trick with other demons. You can't do it here without the help of your comrades, but that's exactly why they came here together. Very quickly, Lee and company began destroying the Draugr, which in Norse mythology are the dead who came back to life and began to take revenge. Soon, Lee noticed something interesting. His ring began to absorb the souls of monsters. Currently, there is 1 soul in his ring, but this number may increase in the future. He decided that all this was unnecessary nonsense and did not pay any special attention to this situation, so he continued to destroy the enemies. Hiram wanted to help, but her comrades mixed with monsters, and she might accidentally kill one of her friends. In such situations, one must act very carefully because modern weapons can only worsen the situation. On the other hand, leaving the team without support is even worse because they will not be able to defend themselves against a large number of monsters for long. At this point, Lee showed himself to be a true leader and began giving orders to his comrades. Darren must clear the way for her partner and draw attention to herself. She copes with such duties perfectly and always carries out every order of the captain. This plan allows Daecho to show all of his strengths. It turned out that he was not only a skilled puncher, but also took lessons from taekwondo masters. After they retreated, Hiram was allowed to demonstrate what her rifles were capable of. This woman loves the latest technology and came here to experience the adrenaline of using her father's weapons. This is how the army of the living dead was cleared, and the team of hunters made their way deeper into the dungeon. Lee saw firsthand how impractical firearms could be in a dungeon. If they had not acted so coordinated, things could have ended much worse. Usually, mana is transferred to weapons through the hands, but with bullets, it's not so easy because they are inside the magazine. That is why bullets are made from metals found in the dungeon. Such material is especially effective against monsters. These metals are incredibly expensive, and Hiram has just spent a huge amount of money. She has known how to spend money since childhood. The girl grew up in a wealthy family and does not feel the true value of these paper bills. Soon the captain approached another monster and saw how his ring had once again absorbed the soul of the dead man. Now there are 8 souls in his left hand, but it is not yet known how to use this to his advantage. It looks like some kind of artifact. Its mystery must be solved, otherwise it will be of no use. Soon they continued their journey deeper into the dungeon and encountered monsters again. This time they were much better prepared, warned each other of danger, and acted as a true team. Everyone knew their place in the global strategy, supported others, and did not interfere with their comrades. It became noticeable that they really are becoming a better team with each new battle, which is exactly what should be expected from talented warriors. Hiram was concerned that there were so many newcomers around her. She was surprised that they weren't having any problems so far. She looks at the young captain and realizes that without his leadership qualities, they wouldn't have been able to get this far. He's much more talented than she initially thought, and it seems like she likes him. Soon they finally reach the room where the dungeon boss should be. It feels like they've stepped inside some kind of relic, and that's probably what it is, because it's an ancient tomb of warriors. Inside the huge room, they saw a statue of a knight and what looked like a wooden coffin. It seemed that there was no one in this room, but Lee understood where the danger lay and ordered them to immediately disperse in different directions. It was like an ambush. If he hadn't warned his friends, they would have turned. Within a minute, they realized who the real enemy was in this room and regretted coming to this purge. A huge monster began to attack, and its first victim was Darren. The girl managed to defend herself, and Hiram immediately began shooting at his opponent's head. Obviously, this strategy didn't help much, but at least it distracted him from Darren. The monster's armor is made of durable dungeon materials, but if you hit the core, it should be enough to destroy the boss. Very quickly, Lee guessed that the nucleus was not in the neck at all, but in some other area. In fact, there are few options. The core is either in the head or in the heart. All that remains is to find it. Despite its large size, the boss moved quite quickly, so it was able to anticipate Lee's attack. His defense worked almost perfectly, and the guy was unable to land his powerful shot. Although it was a failure, sometimes failure provides an opportunity for future victory. The monster was distracted and completely forgot about Darren, who took perfect advantage of the moment and attacked. It turned out that even this was not enough, because the core was located elsewhere. They needed to find a safe place and retreat immediately, but Darren couldn't draw her sword. The entire monster has a huge amount of energy and strength. It will be difficult to stop it even despite the numerical superiority. When they came here, they overestimated their chances and forgot that this was their first test together. Such a difficult moment presents a good opportunity to show his heroic qualities, and Daejo took advantage of this opportunity. He attacked the monster and did everything he could to help his friends get out and retreat. It's hard to believe that even a powerful warrior like Daejo can barely hold back the boss. That says a lot. If the core is not in the heart or the neck, then only the head remains. Finding a broken arrow, Lee decided to use it and stick it in the boss's head. He was right. The core was indeed in the head, but the arrow turned out to be too short. He had the perfect chance to send the monster to hell, but now he has to think about his own safety again. When the boss grabbed his hand, intending to tear Lee to shreds, he turned his attention to the ring. At this point, Kira took the opportunity and began attacking this giant in a weak spot. She tried to aim at the core, which is in the head, and end this unpleasant battle. Oddly enough, she took her chance perfectly and sent the boss to hell. The system reported that they were able to defeat the guardian of the forgotten dead. Now the ring has once again absorbed the soul of the dead monster. Now this artifact contains almost 100 dead souls. Surely the stronger the opponent, the more valuable his soul, and this is logical. If this huge monster is indeed a boss, then the dungeon should have ended, but there was no message. The quest is still not completed, although this monster was definitely the boss of the dungeon, or so it seemed. The hunters saw that the coffin was beginning to open. Now it seemed that the huge monster was only the bodyguard of the real boss. Soon they saw something very scary. Lee does not remember seeing anything like it in his past life. This scary monster looked at him and asked where he got this ring. It turned out that only Lee understood it. Everyone else couldn't understand this language. Soon the dead man said that it was too light and put out the fire. Everything around became dark, and it was difficult to see each other. It must be remembered that this team is made up of beginners. They are not ready for such situations. Instead of saving his comrades, Lee will have to fight the boss because he has chosen him as his first target. This ugly monster wants to take the green ring for himself. He believes that ordinary mortals have no right to receive such artifacts. Lee will have to endure hardship. If he wants to save his friends, he must kill this demon without support. Hiram is the most experienced of all the team members. She understood that without light, they were doomed. Very quickly, she figured out a way to light up the room, and now they can see each other again. We need to pull ourselves together and help our captain, even though he's doing well himself so far. It feels like the boss is on a completely different level compared to his bodyguard, but that doesn't mean he can't be defeated. If you increase your mana level and direct it to the enemy's weak spot, it can help you win. The problem is that the mana supply runs out quickly, and without decisive action, everything can end badly. At this difficult moment, Lee even began to think about giving up the ring in order to save his own life. There are no weaknesses in this opponent's defense, and it's so difficult to dodge. If this continues, any minimal mistake will lead to death. Lee mentioned that he had no right to die because if he did, his main mission would be a failure. We must not forget that his beloved daughter is waiting for him at home, and he must save her from the terrible fate of the future. This girl deserves a second chance, deserves to live a happy and peaceful life with her family. She must not turn into a monster again that will force humanity to disappear from planet Earth. At this moment, the system suggested that he use the power of the Ring of Fate. Finally, we will see what this artifact is capable of. He must choose the number of souls he wants to absorb, although he has no idea how it is used. There was no time to think. He selected absolutely all the souls that were in the artifact and ordered them to be used immediately. The ring immediately began to glow brightly green, and a protective barrier of mana formed around it. He felt significant pain, but it was nothing like being struck by lightning. On the contrary, this pain gave him strength. His physical attributes were temporarily enhanced, as was his mana level, so he immediately began to seize the initiative. Now it no longer feels like beating a hunter. On the contrary, this hunter has become stronger than the true Lord of the Dead. He feels an incredible surge of strength, although just a few seconds ago, he felt that he wouldn't be able to hold out for long. After a while, his strength will run out, and even by uniting with his friends, he will not be able to stop the boss. That's why you need to act incredibly quickly, and he had no problem with that. The problem started when the boss got angry and said he was ready to do anything to get this ring into his collection. It was at this point in the fight that Lee saw the boss's inner core, which seems to be another hidden function that was activated with the ring. Now all that remains is to choose the right moment to attack and deliver a well-aimed blow to the heart area. If you destroy the boss's protective barrier, you can easily break through his internal defenses and tear his heart apart. The deed was done. The system notified them that they were able to kill the Forgotten Hero and be the first to clear the dungeon of Forgotten Warriors. Now his strength returns to normal, as does his mana level. The ring was able to absorb the soul of the slain monster, and now it has even more energy than it had before the fight began. A little later, the system also reported that the King's Ring had absorbed part of humanity, and this was not good news at all. In any case, the ring helped save lives and clear the dungeon, so now it was time to return home. Lee kept trying to understand what it meant to absorb humanity, because he didn't feel any changes in his body. Lee turned his head and saw his wife joking with her daughter. He can't help but smile when he sees these two beautiful girls, but for some reason he doesn't show any emotions right now. He looked at himself in the mirror and couldn't understand why he wasn't laughing. It seemed like he couldn't even do it on his own. The girls also noticed a change in his behavior. It seemed like he came back from the task completely different. It was as if all his emotions had disappeared, which was what the warning about the loss of humanity meant. He was afraid of losing everything that made him human, and that he would never be able to smile again when he looked at his beautiful daughter. He hugged her before going to bed, but his mind was in a completely different place, and he felt an incredible anxiety in his heart. At this moment, a strange change occurred. As soon as he wished Sora good night, the system reported that some of his humanity had been restored. This happened again after he kissed his daughter and called her a little angel, so there is a pattern to this. He realized that everyone who was around Sora felt better. It seemed as if Sora therapy really existed. Now this girl becomes his real good luck charm. He will never be able to give up his love for her. They went to bed and rested well after the difficult events. New adventures await them the next day. A tall man in a hat appeared at the main office of the Knights Guild. Let us recall that this is William Taylor, a representative of the Wizard's Tower. He came to the leader of the Knights Guild, Master Sehen, to talk to him and ask a few questions. He knows that the hunter was recently at the house of the Holy Sword of Korea and wants to know if he noticed anything strange there. In fact, Sehun wanted to forget everything that happened there and remembered it as a bad dream, so he replied that he didn't see anything strange. William said that 2 days later, and after Sehun's visit, a powerful explosion of mana was recorded at the Holy Sword training ground. It turned out that this mana charge was even greater than usual when a bow appears from a dungeon. That's why William Taylor came here to talk and find out any details about that day. Sehun said that he met with Lee and Kira the day he came to Darren's, and an interesting conversation